with pain, it's a lack of, well, I mean, with any disease, really, it's a lack of electrons. And the goal is to stop the loss of electrons and put the electrons back in. So electrons come with a negative charge, protons come with a positive charge. And remember, I talked about we want to have a net negative charge.
Welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. I'm your host, Lee Brandon. This work started for me several decades ago when I started to see the impact I could make on people, helping them to identify the root cause of their health problems that no doctor could figure out, including serious back, knee, shoulder and neck injuries, acne and eczema issues, severe gut health problems, even helping couples get pregnant after several IVF treatments had failed. And it really moves me to be able to help people in this way. And that is why I do what I do and why we have this show. In this episode, I'm joined by Jason Young, and we dive deep into the root causes and solutions for chronic pain. Chronic pain is more than just a physical condition. It's a signal that something deeper is at play within the body. Together, Jason and I explore heteroplasmy, its causes and mechanisms, as well as the impacts of non-native EMFs on the body. We also discuss the critical role of circadian nutrition, why DHEA is an essential nutrient, and how pain is fundamentally connected to a loss of electrons in the body. This is a powerful conversation filled with insights to help you better understand the complexities of chronic pain and take steps towards lasting solutions. Jason Young, welcome to the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Lee. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So, Jason, to kick things off, could you share a little bit about your own background, including your professional background and also in particular your own health story as well?
Sure. So I started off basically working out became my passion. Sylvester Stallone was the inspiration for me starting to work out. Rocky IV is still my favorite movie of all time. So it's still the greatest montage of all time, even 41 years later. But I went into college basically not knowing what I wanted to do, but fitness was basically the only thing that really interested me. So I decided to go into exercise science as a major, and but I actually couldn't get that major because the math and chemistry requirements were too great for me. So I had to drop down to sports and leisure studies with an emphasis in fitness, coaching, and recreation. And that eventually was what I graduated with. It did take me 7 years because I still had to have math and chemistry requirements, which I don't understand because we don't really, wanting to own a gym and being a personal trainer, you don't really do anything with chemistry or geometry or whatever. So, but when I got out, when I got out, that was when I actually got my first sickness. Because I got out and I needed to find a job to pay the bills. So I basically got into a collections job. And it's basically calling people for their debts, which is very depressing in itself. So I got depression, high anxiety, and I actually had thoughts of suicide pretty much weekly. So I was went through that, probably 3 or 4 years I was going through that. And then 2007 is when I decided to open up my own business. I knew I needed to reverse that, so I went through all kinds of different things. I found Lucinda acids attacking depression and anxiety. It was actually on tape cassette. That's how old it was. So, but that helped me get through it. And then also reading a bunch of books and basically getting my mindset fixed. So that was the key. So that's one of the things that I talk about all the time. Is mindset matters. You want to become the mind tamer of your personal life. And it's basically what what I did. So once I fixed my mindset, got over the depression, then I decided I wanted to open my business. So 2007 is when I opened it. It started off as like just basically a fitness boot camp. It was outdoors. So I did that for about 3 or 4 months, but in Ohio, where I live in the US, it gets cold here. So I needed to find a new place so we can go in. So eventually I rented out a martial arts studio, and then things just started blossoming from there. Things started growing. Eventually I opened up the boot camp to 3 locations and got an actual permanent location with my first location. And yeah, things were going good. I opened up a youth strength and conditioning facility as well. And then I started adding on nutrition, teaching people about nutrition and whatnot. And because when I first started my business, I didn't talk at all about nutrition because I was still a little on the pudgy side. So back when I was in my depression years and whatnot, I basically followed like a standard American diet, but like bodybuilding standardized. So it was very, very high protein, very, very low fat. Obviously, high carbohydrates as well. But I was a big boy. I was up to like 222 pounds, but my body fat probably was like 25%. But if you would have asked me back then, I probably would have told you I looked like Arnold back in his bodybuilding years. Just delusional. But yeah, so just big, huge ego. So I didn't start talking about nutrition in my business probably until about 2010. I think that's when I read Rob Wolf's the Paleo Diet Solution, or whatever it's called. Going on the paleo diet, that's when I felt the absolute best I ever felt. But I just continued on the nutrition path. Eventually I found like nutritional cleansing, and then I added the keto diet in 2014, and then I started teaching people about that. And but I continued on that lifestyle. Basically, I was having to wake up at 4:30 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, occasionally every single day, going to the gym, doing all that stuff, not getting home until 8 or 9 p.m., and then having my last meal when I got home. And following that lifestyle, obviously, is when I got sick for the second time. So it was probably around 2017, 2018, I really started feeling it. But it was basically hormone issues that I started having. And in your late 30s as a male and somebody who's supposed to be in the health and wellness industry, helping people get healthy, that was just completely unacceptable to me. So I knew I needed to start finding different ways or searching different paths, because what I was doing wasn't working. And I was hardcore on the workouts 5 to 6 times a week, and my nutrition, I thought at the time, was spot on. And that was when Dr. Jack Kruse was introduced to me for a second time. The first time he was introduced to me was 2013. I read his book, The Epi-Paleo Solution, but I followed his stuff for about probably 2 weeks. I wasn't ready for his message back then, because I had fitness programs to sell you, I had nutrition programs to sell you, I had supplements to sell you. So I just wasn't ready. So there's that acronym, or the proverb, like, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But in my case, it was reappear. So he reappeared in 2018, and I was fully ready for his message of circadian biology, mitochondria, lights, more importantly, food and exercise, and whatnot. And basically I followed it. And at the beginning, I started off doing it wrong, but I felt so much better than I normally did. But eventually I turned around, keyed everything in, and then things started turning around. And then it was like that became my true purpose in life, is teaching people about that. Because I've always wanted to help people get healthy ever since I had my depression and getting them out of that. But I didn't really know the true path fitness and nutrition plays a part, but it's not as big a part as most people say it is. So, and from there, I closed the gym down in 2020. I still train clients out of my home here. But my main passion is basically coaching people in circadian biology and mitochondria health and hormones and that kind of stuff.
Cool. So can you explain what heteroplasmy is and how that might be related in some way to someone with chronic pain?
Yes. So heteroplasmy, well, we should introduce the mitochondria first.
Yeah.
So the mitochondria, basically everybody, I don't know how it is over there, but everybody here in the States, we learn about mitochondria being like the powerhouse of the cell. Learn that in like elementary or middle school biology. But that's as far as they really go in teaching you about it. So, but what a lot of people, so most people know that we have our nuclear genome, which is our DNA. But a lot of people do not know that we have a second genome, and that is our mitochondrial genome. So the nuclear DNA basically has thousands and thousands. I think it's anywhere, I've read numbers anywhere between 19,000 to 25,000 genes in the nuclear DNA. But the mitochondrial DNA only has 37. Okay? And 13 of those genes are directly towards making the nucleic acids for the respiratory proteins. So the respiratory proteins sit in the mitochondria, and basically what heteroplasmy is basically if those respiratory proteins get stretched out too much, then you are starting to develop symptoms of a disease. And eventually, if you let it keep going, you'll get the full-blown disease. And then if you let it keep going, the disease will get worse and worse and worse. And then eventually you'll die. And depending on what it is in what area of the body that is, it will determine how fast you die. So obviously, if it's your heart or your lungs or your brain or something that's very, very vital, when the respiratory proteins get stretched out, then basically you're aging prematurely. So the good thing about it is we can actually stop the progression of the stretching, and in some cases we can shrink the progression. So it's said that it's said pretty much every decade, if you're not doing anything particular, not living particularly bad or particularly good, it's going to increase about 10% every year, every decade. But the thing is, in today's world, so like when you and I were born, most kids were born like 0% heteroplasmy. But today we've got kids being born 10, 20, 30% heteroplasmy. So I know there's been studies showing like 54% of kids in America have some kind of chronic disease. And so, yeah, and then genetic diseases are getting worse and worse. And it's because of, everything that's basically going on. But basically the heteroplasmy, it just keeps rising in parents, and those parents have kids that are not so healthy. So it's basically so if you ever have like a fruit bowl and you have one bad fruit next to all the good fruit, and so that bad fruit is going to push over to the next good fruit, try and turn that bad, and then that fruit is going to go on unless you remove those bad fruits. So it's basically bad mitochondria that's causing the heteroplasmy rate to rise, so to speak. So what we want to do is stop the rise, take out the bad mitochondria. So we do that through there's many processes. So sleep is the most important for it. Sleep is I always say everybody's day starts at midnight, and we should be asleep for it in order to get into the most restful sleep, which is the stage 3 and stage 4. So the deep sleep and the REM sleep. So that's the sleep that kind of recovers us. It causes autophagy in the body, which is basically cellular recycling, and also apoptosis, which is basically taking out the really bad cells. So it's basically taking out the trash. But inside of autophagy and autophagy and apoptosis, you also have mitophagy, which is mitochondrial recycling and mitochondrial trash taking out. So getting good sleep is vital for that. Fasting is also something that will take out the trash and recycle the trash. Exercise, when done right, will also do that as well. Yeah, that's a introductory lesson on heteroplasmy.
Yeah. If I can just paraphrase what you've said, just so that I've understood it correctly. So heteroplasmy is when the respiratory protons in the mitochondria widen. Is that the word you use?
Respiratory proteins when they stretch out. Yes.
Stretch. Yeah. And that increases the rate of illness.
Yeah, well, it starts to cause bad mitochondria, which if you don't fix, then that will start the process of disease formation. Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So do you know what causes the heteroplasmy? If you've been struggling with unexplained symptoms or ongoing health issues, you're not alone. Take Trail's story as an example. After 18 months of seeing numerous doctors and specialists, Trail was told there was nothing physically wrong with him. His pain was dismissed, and he was even told it might be all in his head. But despite all the tests, his health continued to deteriorate, and he wasn't getting any answers. In desperation, Trail found me through the Check Institute, and though he didn't expect much, he decided to give it a try. When we first met, he was seriously unwell, having lost 17 kilos and feeling like a shell of his former self. After running diagnostic tests and addressing food sensitivities, I guided him through changes to his diet and recommended a few necessary supplements. Within just 1 week, Trail started to feel better. As the weeks went on, his health continued to improve, and by the second month, he knew he was on the road to recovery. Today, Trail is back to 100% healthy and free from pain, and he understands how his body needs to function to stay that way. He's learned how modern living can slowly unbalance your health without you even noticing, and he knows how to correct it. If you're frustrated with not getting answers from doctors and feel like you're running out of options, I can help. Let's uncover the root causes of your health issues and get you back on track. Reach out today at www.bodycheck.co.uk and let's start your healing journey together.
Yeah. I mean, it's a number of factors. Probably the number one and number two factors for all disease is going to be your artificial light and your artificial frequencies. So, we can start anywhere. We can just start with light. So artificial blue light. If you're watching the podcast, you can see that I have blue blockers on. It's probably overkill because I also have a program on my computer called Iris, which basically takes all the blue light on the screen. But the ones I have on are yellow. So there's different types of blue blockers. So there's typically there's 4 types of blue blockers. But the blue blocker you want to stay away with I think it's just like snake oil salesmen trying to make money. It's just clear blue blockers. There's no tint or anything. So they don't really do anything. If they're working, it's basically a placebo effect. It's not really blocking any blue light. But so the day blockers, what I have on now, they're either a yellow or a gray shade. They typically, first blue light, anywhere from 400 to about 485 is going to be your blue spectrum. So the day blockers, they're going to block up to 450 nanometers of blue light. So that is blocking the most dangerous blue light. So typically the most dangerous blue light is anywhere between 420 and 455. And then you have the orange blue blockers, which will block up to 500 nanometers. So that'll block all the blue and some of the green. So some green light will be detrimental to you. And then there's also the red, similar we have here. So this is typically what I wear at night. So the red will block up to 550 nanometers, which will block all the bad blue and green frequencies. So when you, the main issue with blue light is, well, I mean, we're adapted to blue light, but we're adapted to it from the sun. So in the sun, blue light, when the sun is up, even if it's cloudy or rainy or snowy or foggy, if the sun is up, then blue light is being emitted from the sun. You're also having red light as well, and then occasionally you'll have the UV, the purple lights, UVA, UVB, but that's the kind of blue light that we're adapted to. The fake blue light, which was Thomas Edison created the light bulb in 1879, but he didn't have a way to get it to everybody. So we had to wait till I think it was 1895 at the Chicago's World Fair, where Tesla and Westinghouse basically created their power grid, and they lit up the Chicago World Fair. And from there, all the rich people said, "I want that. I want that." But it wasn't until 1924 that the first city, which was Paris, they lit up their streets with the street lights and the blue light. So it's basically been 100 years, and yeah, we can see like the disease epidemic and progression that we've had since then. I think 1900, I think the diagnosis of cancer was like 1 in 8,000, and today for men it's 1 in 2, women it's 1 in 3. So obviously other things coming into play, but this is the light and artificial stuff, artificial frequencies is the big things. So when we do get that artificial blue light on the eye is where it's the most damaging, but it also hurts the skin as well. So there's a thing that we have in our eyes, in our skin, in our bones, in our arterioles. It's called melanopsin. And melanopsin is basically our blue light antenna. So it's a protein that senses blue light. Again, it's supposed to sense it from the sun, and in the sun, it's basically changing every billionth. The frequency is changing every billionth of a second. But when you're under lights that have the same color temperature, they don't change at all. So the typical lighting is anywhere between 5,500 to 6,500 Kelvin, which is going to give you like a midday, like a solar noon type of frequency. So when your brain gets hit with that signal every time, it's basically telling the brain, hey, it's 12 o'clock, it's 1 p.m. And you hit with that at like 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., or before the sun rises, it's basically sending the wrong message to your brain. And when that happens, then things start going haywire. You start getting cortisol issues. Melatonin is one of the big things that gets destroyed with artificial light. And melatonin is actually the controller of our mitochondrial genome. So it's very, very, very important. But melanopsin will basically sense that. That's why I always say take sun breaks throughout the day so your eyes and your skin can basically reset your circadian rhythm every time you go outside. But if you're always under blue light, you're not blocking it, it's basically giving the wrong signal throughout the day. And that's why people need to revert to coffee and pastries and things they shouldn't be eating. So, yeah. So,
yeah. Yeah. I guess the other thing there is as well is that, when we have long days, in terms of our ancestry, if you like, before artificial light, if it was a long day, our body would be thinking, well, it's summertime. I need to eat fruit to get fat to survive the winter. So if you're creating an artificially long day with artificial lights, your hormonal system, your nervous system is still thinking, well, it's the middle of summer. I need to eat carbohydrates to get fat.
It does. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So most people here, in there as well, northern latitude right now, we're in winter. And a lot of people, they'll just be indoors all day long and they're under their thermostat, whatever they said, 60, 68, 72, 75. So your mitochondria is basically an environmental sensor. It feels that, but so it basically thinks that it's in a perpetual spring year round. And then most people don't really, I always say you're supposed to eat seasonally based on what the temperature is and what your local environment is going to provide to you. But a lot of people will skip that. So they'll be inside seeing the snow come down, eating pineapple and blueberries and not realizing that that's not good for you. That's basically loading the body up with deuterium and making them fatter. So one example I always give is like the bear. So the bear typically late fall or early fall, late fall, they're trying to eat as much as they can because the power of the sun is going down, the UV power is going down, but carbohydrates are still available. So that bear is getting fatter and fatter, ready to lie down for the winter to hibernate. And then, so they make themselves like pre-diabetic or almost diabetic, and then they lie down to hibernate. They come out in the spring, they're perfectly healthy and they're ready to go for the rest of the year. But humans, they tend to just stay indoors. On my walk this morning, I saw one of the neighbors, instead of taking her mail to the mailbox, she drove her car down to the mailbox, put it in there, and then continued on. It's like that 15 seconds you could have walked out, that would have been beneficial to you, but she's always doing things like that. So, yeah, and it's, I see it all the time. Like in the winter, I tend to do at least 2 walks where I'm walking around shirtless and short shorts, just wearing a hat and gloves and shoes. And I'll see people somebody took a picture of me the other day. So, so it's crazy. It's a mindset. Cold is, to some people, it can be a 4-letter word, but it's one of the mitochondria's basically zeitgeibers. So it's an environmental sensor, just like light. So it wants to feel the temperature. It wants to feel the magnetic field of Earth. So the 3-legged stool is basically light, water, magnetism. So if one of the stools falls out, the whole stool falls down, and usually the person does as well. But in today's world, we can do a lot of bad things, and we can stay alive for a long time. But does that really mean we're actually living? So, yeah.
So one of the things that causes the heteroplasmy is the blue light and other potentially damaging lights. Do you know what the mechanism is that causes the damage?
Well, it's so the color temperature of the typical lights is again, it doesn't change at all. So melanopsin is picking up on that signal, and it relays so our master circadian clock is called our suprachiasmatic nucleus, which sits right behind the retina. So that picks up the light that it's sensing, sends it to the brain, and then the brain sends it all over the body. So our circadian rhythm is basically clocks. We're run by clocks, and so the master clock needs to talk to all the other clocks. So it's kind of like the GPS satellite in the sky. It needs to run a little bit faster than your phone. Otherwise, your phone, when you use directions, it will send you 5 miles off or 10 miles off in the wrong direction. So instead, we have a peripheral circadian clock in front of every gene, and some of them say every cell, which we have trillions and trillions of them. So if we're getting the wrong signal and it's sending that to all the rest of the body, then things are going to start to be off. And one thing we do need to have in abundance, and one thing that artificial light absolutely destroys besides melatonin, is DHA. So the omega-3 fatty acid. We have the most DHA on a per unit basis in our retina. And that's basically for the, because what DHA does is when the light comes in, DHA takes that light, turns it into a DC electric current. So Robert Lebecker, I think in the 1970s, he found that every living thing has a DC electric current during the day. So that's basically like it's supposed to be our healing power during the day. At night, it goes away because we're regenerating it. And we've got other programs, apoptosis and autophagy, to fix the body when we sleep. But yeah, that DC current is huge. So he wrote a great book called The Electric Body that I highly suggest. One of the most important books, I think, of our time.
Yeah, it's the body electric, isn't it?
Yeah, body electric. Yeah, so the DHA takes that light, turns it into a DC current, and then it basically goes all over the body because we're electromagnetic beings. And if that electric current, and anytime there's an electric current, 90 degrees to it, there's a magnetic current. So anytime the currents go down, then basically our battery is going down. So that's basically our redox potential of the cell. So we're supposed to have a net negative charge in our cell, but as we get more inflamed, as inflammation grows, and as disease progression gets worse and worse, then our negative electric charge basically becomes more towards zero, and then eventually it gets positive, which is not bad, which is bad. And then our ability to regenerate, our ability to heal, our ability to make energy just simply vanishes. So everything is kind of like a domino effect. So blue light start knocking other dominoes down. Artificial frequencies, non-native EMF starts knocking other frequencies down. Bad food starts knocking other things down. So it just keeps going, and then the pain keeps getting worse unless we actually do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, from what you just said, I'm kind of guessing that the more heteroplasmy you have, the more likely, again, correct me if I'm wrong, you're more likely to have less regeneration of tissues. That would be one thing. But you're also more likely to have inflammation in the body. And obviously, both of those things could potentially be related to pain, particularly chronic pain.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. So in terms of the cause of heteroplasmy, you've mentioned the light. I think you were going to mention another thing. Am I right?
Yes.
Did you know that 92% of people fail to follow through on their New Year's resolutions? That's right. Year after year, most of us start strong and then lose momentum by February. Sound familiar? But what if this year could be different? What if you finally had the tools to make your goals stick? Introducing Stickability, a simple, effective, and affordable program designed to help you overcome the cycle of failed resolutions. In just a short time, you'll learn how to create lasting habits without wasting hours or breaking the bank. This isn't just another plan. It's the solution to finally sticking to your healthy lifestyle goals. Don't let this year be like the last. Head over to stickabilitycourse.com now to enroll. It's affordable, easy to follow, and packed with tools to make 2025 the year that you have the ability to make it stick.
basically non-native EMF or electro pollution. So basically, think of just electricity. The power grid was basically the first one that we were introduced to.
Yeah.
And you got your cell phone, you've got the cell towers, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got all these smart appliances, smart technology, but it's really dumb for biology because it saves energy on your bill, but in your body where it matters, it costs you a lot more. So I have a podcast as well, and I have a new series that I started called Unknown Death Causers. I've done, I think, 5 episodes so far. I've done sunglasses, sunscreen, phones, Wi-Fi. I've done 2 on sunglasses. But my phone episode is the longest I did. It's phones and wireless tech. So like AirPods, all that stuff. But basically, yeah, like the worst thing you can do with non-native EMF is put anything on your head. So they say since the year 2000, when basically cell phones were introduced, the 4 top cancers that have been basically skyrocketing are brain, thyroid, stomach, and colorectal. And what those 4 have in common is basically stupid places people put their phones. So I think it was in 1900, colon cancer was the 37th leading cause of death via cancer. And today it's number 2, and it's expected to go to number 1 by 2030. And it's basically, if you put your phone in your pocket down there, it's going to cause issues. I mean, you also have all the other stuff. You've got testicular cancer, prostate, uterus, okay,
breast.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, putting it right there on your heart, your chest, not.
Yeah, I see women at the gym, and they've got them in their bra tops.
Yeah.
You know, it's a hard. I mean, I love going to the gym, and I've got a really great gym near me that I go to. Literally just a 5-minute walk. And I walk in, and 80-90% of them are wearing Bluetooth headphones, and they've got their phone strapped to their body, so it's obviously switched on, not in airplane mode. And it just breaks my heart, you know, because I know if I go and say something to them, they're not going to hear what I'm saying anyway. There's no point. And then, you know, like I said, you know, you see women putting them inside their bra, and or in their back pocket, and you just, it's just so hard to watch, you know. And I almost want to like get some kind of T-shirt I can wear when I go to the gym to try and warn people. And you know, just seeing, you know, people that I don't know, and they're walking along the street and they're talking on their phone, and they've got it next to their head, you know, right next to their ear. You just think, wow, you know, just putting it on airplane mode, it's not airplane mode, on speakerphone, it's going to make a difference, right?
Yeah, I always say the phone is the biggest detriment to your health. So my phone, over here, I use it's an EMF case. And on my phone, my screen is always red. So take the blue light out. So I've got this case, and then I take it and I put it in this Faraday pouch. And then I basically take this Faraday pouch, and how I walk around with it is a EMF fanny pack. So I'm hardcore in regards to blocking that frequency, because I mean, if it's in my pocket, I put it in my front pocket, so it's right next to my bowls all the time. So I want as much protection as possible, because they say like a 20-year-old today has the same testosterone level that in the 1950s a 70-year-old had. So these frequencies combined with the light combined with the bad food, combined with what they're spraying in the air and what they want us to inject into our body. I mean, it's all playing a part. But we just have to we can just do the best that we can. But you need the knowledge to know what they're trying to kill you with, so you can fight back.
Yeah. So some of the situations that almost fill me with dread is, getting into a car full of my family members, because they don't understand that, when you're inside a tin box, what that does when you've all got a mobile phone. Like if I'm in my car, my mobile phone's switched off. It's not even switched on, right? And if I ask one of them, do you mind switching your phone off in the car? They would just think I'm mad.
Yeah.
Right. But then that's one thing. But then you think getting on a train or an airplane.
It's kind of like cigarettes. So, I mean, they used to allow cigarette smoking on planes, taxis, all that stuff, trains.
Yeah.
Okay? So eventually I think cell phones, well, I don't know. It's kind of like they make all the money. So they basically tell industry and tell companies what to do. So, and that's one of the big problems is the FCC here. I don't know what it is over there, but basically they're saying like the radiation is from the thermal effects. So they're only thermal effects, but there's the non-thermal effects that are the damaging things that happen to us. I mean, you've got, I don't know how it is over there, but kids here, they're allowed to wear AirPods in class, in school. Yeah.
Wow.
So, it's a big issue.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, most people don't realize that the safety testing that was done for mobile phones, I believe, was done in the 1980s with the old technology against a 6'2" male mannequin. Right. And you think, well, how is that relevant to today's technology and to a real human being, know? So that's pretty scary.
The EMF is more damaging to a child because their brain doesn't fully develop fully myelinate until around 25, 28 years old. And a lot of organs are fully developing in their 20s as well. So that's probably the group that's suffering the most, because here in America, I mean, the average kid gets a cell phone like 6 or 7 years old. And so it's like, it's like late 20s is, like mid 20s to late 20s is when people were just really starting to see like brain cancers start to load on those individuals. Yeah.
I know. I think it's Australia that about to ban. I can't remember if it's social media or mobile phones for under 16s.
Yes.
And you kind of think, well, that sounds like a good idea, and it does sound like a good idea. But the problem is, what they're saying is they need a digital ID to be able to use.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So then once they roll in a digital ID for teenagers, they're going to say everyone needs a digital ID. Right. So whilst on the surface, it seems like they're doing it for the good of the people, that there's always the ulterior motive. And that's a whole nother podcast episode. So you mentioned this briefly, but maybe you want to go into more detail in terms of why it's so important that we eat seasonally.
Yes. So seasonal eating, I call it Circadian Nutrition. You want to eat as seasonally as possible and as local as possible. So here in Ohio, basically nothing grows from October to April. So like the first thing that grows here in April is asparagus. So when you do all food that's not grown in a lab, which you shouldn't be eating, all food is grown via photosynthesis. And photosynthesis, I think it was recently discovered, like 2012 or something, that there's 37 steps to it. and all of those steps are quantized or driven by light. So basically, when you are eating that light. So I haven't talked about electrons or protons yet, but basically, if you think of your health as a pyramid, and at the base level of the pyramid is electrons, protons, and photons. So if the base level of your house or the base level of the pyramid collapses, everything falls down. So the only thing, all electrons basically across the universe are the same. The only difference is the light that fills them. So they have a very specific electromagnetic footprint. So if you get a fruit from Florida or Chile or Argentina, it's going to have a very different footprint than, say, a tomato grown in Ohio or Michigan. So you are eating that light, and when you eat that light, the light is basically, it's how we communicate. So our body wants to harness UV and IR, infrared light, and it also wants to release that light when it's needed. So basically, our water networks is like the best storage unit for water, because you can store it for super long, and it can be distributed wherever it needs to go in the body. But when you eat the food, you're eating that light. So if you're eating, say, a banana right now in London or Ohio, it's basically very, very low UV, but the banana came from Argentina, which has like a 10 or 11 UV. That's basically going to release that light, and it's basically going to tell your mitochondria, hey, this is a summertime fruit. Why am I getting this? Okay. And then it doesn't understand. And so it starts to do things. It creates cell chaos. The communication of the cells starts to break down. It leads to inflammation, which leads to basically everything, all the disease, whatnot. It increases the heteroplasmy. So that's one thing that a lot of people will think is insane. If you tell people, hey, a banana isn't healthy right now, I don't think that's insane, but they're so programmed, and the corporations have done such a good job marketing and brainwashing us around certain topics that we don't really think about it. So right now, in the northern latitude, like the best diet you can be on is like a keto diet or low carb, high fat, basically because nothing grows. So like the only fruits or the only vegetables that I eat are from now until April will be onions, mushrooms, which isn't really a vegetable, it's a fungus. So and I'll have occasional seaweed and occasional avocado, maybe like one or two avocados a week. Avocados are a little different because there's fat. It's more fat than like a banana, which is like pure carbohydrates. But each person has to take their own context into play. So if you've got certain issues, you've got to follow the rules a little bit more until you're able to fix the problem, and then you can go back to the way things were. Or sometimes people have pushed their limits so far that they've reached the point of no return that they can't do that anymore, so to speak. But yeah. So eating as local as possible. So farmers markets when they're open, growing your own food. It's huge, because most grocery stores they're pretty much shipping everything in, at least fruits and vegetables, at least here. But I'm lucky where I am, because usually when it's warmer, there's a couple farmers markets that are like open every day or 5 days a week. So
it's really interesting what you just said there, because I get my groceries delivered today, Like every so we're recording this on a Friday, so I get my groceries delivered on a Friday, and apart from meat, the only other thing I had delivered, well, butter, had some liver, some onions, and some mushrooms.
Yeah. Yep, that's a good thing.
Interesting, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I did actually have some sauerkraut as well. Sauerkraut as well. So I'm almost there. I'm almost there.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I eat onions is sulfur. It's one of the highest sulfur containing foods. So the sun makes sulfate in the body, and then that sulfate goes on to make sulfated cholesterol, and then from sulfated cholesterol you can make vitamin D, sulfated vitamin D, when it is available and out. So that's one of the problems with like taking like supplemental vitamin D is it's not sulfated, and it's basically you're getting the chemical signal of vitamin D, but you're not getting the frequency that creates it. So that's another thing that creates cell chaos in the body and raises your heteroplasmy.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned earlier was DHA. That's in omega-3 fatty acids. I don't know if you completely kind of covered this, but I know you believe it's the most important nutrient. Why do you suggest that? Hey Rebels, did you know I now produce an exclusive No Punches Pulled episode every month? These episodes feature controversial guests who aren't afraid to expose lies, share stories of being gaslit or cancelled, and provide real-world solutions for achieving optimal health and maintaining your freedom. These are the kind of episodes that got me cancelled back in 2022, booted off Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and even deplatformed from LinkedIn. But I'm still here. And these powerful episodes are available exclusive for subscribers only. For the price of just one takeaway coffee per month, you'll gain access to content the authorities don't want you to hear. By subscribing, you're not just supporting the Radical Health Rebel podcast, you're joining the fight for uncensored truth, education, and inspiration. It's easy to sign up. Just head to the show notes, click support the show, and follow their instructions. Prefer watching your podcasts? You can also subscribe on Substack by searching Radical Health Rebel. There you'll also receive weekly articles and more, all for the same low price. Let's rebel against censorship and the lies of mainstream media. Together, we can build a healthier, fairer, and freer world. Thanks for your support, and let's keep rebelling.
Well, like I said, it takes sunlight, turns it into the DC electric current, and then once that current's done, it can go back to light. But also DHA will, it's an electron catcher. So you need DHA to catch the electrons that come in. So basically, because of its special pi electron cloud, basically think of like, I don't know if you had them, but when I was a kid, there was like in the malls, there was like a giant tube, and then there was like a little hole in the middle, and you would put a penny, and the penny would just roll around all the way around like 50, 100 times until the penny went down into the tube. So that's how I kind of think of like DHA. So like DHA is this giant sink, and electrons are falling onto this giant vat, and they're circling until they finally go down into that little hole. And basically what we want the electrons to do is move through the cytochromes in the mitochondria. So there's 5 of them. They move through those, and depending on like the food you eat or where you get the electrons, it will enter the cytochromes at different places. But eventually it wants to reduce down to oxygen. And then once it reduces to oxygen, it creates more electrons. And then the process basically just keeps recycling. But if electron flow stops in you, then you're dead. And if it starts slowing down significantly, that's when you're going to start noticing the issues with energy, the issues with sleep, the symptoms of disease. Heteroplasmy is going to rise, and all that stuff. And yeah, and that's with DHA. Seafood is obviously the best place to get it. The
Mm.
this the best food is oyster, and then after that it's shellfish. But with fish, you want to do like the smaller fish. So there's an acronym called SMASH. So it's salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. So those are the smaller fish. So they don't have as much mercury. So you don't want to be eating like swordfish or shark or whale or something like that every day.
Right.
But when people do talk about mercury poisoning and whatnot, remember that seafood has the antidote for mercury. So it's got all the nutrients in it. So selenium is one of the big chelators of mercury. And you've got copper, you've got iodine, which is probably the most important micronutrient that we need. The B vitamins, all that stuff. So everybody talks about how grass-fed meat is so great, but it's the DHA that we want. So Dr. Cruz always says that bad seafoods, like farm-raised seafood, is actually better than grass-fed meat because of the DHA. But I mean, if you can get the wild-caught DHA or the shellfish, go with that. And I know a lot of people have issues with eating like sardines or seafood in general because they just don't like the texture. One thing I recommend is like a smoothie. So I do a sardine smoothie. It's not as gross as most people think it is. So I mean, I don't even taste it anymore, and you won't taste it if you follow the recipe. So on my YouTube channel, I've got like many recipes with the sardine recipe, but you just start with like one sliver or one half of like the sardine. I'm up to like two cans of sardines. Don't even taste it. So, but yeah, it's vital to the health, vital to catching electrons, vital to turning that light into the DC current. So basically it electrifies our body. So our number one protein in our body is collagen. And if that's not electrified, it turns into basically gelatin. So that's when you can tear an ACL or fall down, you break a hip, and yeah, you're done.
So what else is in the smoothie?
So I start with usually 2 to 3 ounces of coconut milk. Then I'll do probably 4 or 5 ounces of ice cubes, then 4 or 5 ounces of water. Then I'll usually do 2 raw eggs. I'll usually do like a half an ounce of liver. Do cocoa powder. Do a teaspoon of black seed oil. 1 scoop of protein powder, chocolate protein powder. 2 cans of sardines, peanut butter, and then now I do a teaspoon of vanilla extract, couple drops of stevia. But in the warmer months, I just do honey instead of that. And yeah, just blend that up. It's delicious.
Interesting. So we've gone through quite a bit today. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything else maybe specific to someone if they're listening and they're in chronic pain, or maybe even just a summary? If you've got anything else to add.
With pain, it's a lack of well, I mean, with any disease, really, it's a lack of electrons, and the goal is to stop the loss of electrons and put the electrons back in. So electrons come with a negative charge, protons come with a positive charge. And remember, I talked about we want to have a net negative charge. So if you start moving more towards the zero charge or a positive charge, you basically have your ratio of protons to electrons is off. So in order to get that back, keto diet is one of the best things. So seafood has the most electrons and it helps you catch the electrons. And also fat has a lot more electrons than carbohydrates. Carbohydrates can come with more protons than electrons. So that's another reason why seasonal eating should occur. But also, so we're designed to get 60% of our electrons from nature and only 40% from food. So one of the best things you can do is grounding or earthing. So basically going barefoot.
Mm-hmm.
I know if there's snow on the ground where in my front yard, I don't know if it's snowing over there, but basically when it does snow, what I do is I take a shovel, I shovel my grass, and then I go out. I usually have 2 socks on. I'll undo my sock, just put it over my toe, because the grounding port that has the most sensors is our heel of our foot. So you want to get the heel of the foot down into the grass, into concrete. The best places, obviously, the best place to ground would be like the beach where the water is just coming up on the sand. So
What do you think of grounding shoes?
Grounding shoes. I just ordered my first pair. I have not got them yet because I try to sprint once a week, and I usually sprint barefoot. So, and there's also a grounding sock that I asked for Christmas. So hopefully I'll get that. So, but because I could feel the difference when I'm running in shoes. I can feel it with my speed and my gait, and it just doesn't feel right. I feel it more in my low back, which I know I should not. So that's why I wanted to get these things. So, but yeah, there's just do your research on the grounding shoes and the grounding socks. Make sure that you've got reviews and whatnot, and they actually work. But yeah, they shouldn't be a problem. The place they should be a problem. You don't want to be grounding in like big city downtown areas, because usually the power lines are underneath the city, so they're underneath you. And if you have grounding shoes on it, or you're going barefoot, you can jump conduct and you can become basically the outlet. So which you don't want. But otherwise, grounding is one of the top 5 things that people should be doing, especially if they're in chronic pain. Yeah, especially when it's cold. That's another thing we want to feel the cold. Mitochondria wants to feel it.
Yeah, and things like earthing mats, earthing sheets, things like that.
With that, because I'm grounded here, I'm plugged in here. You just want to make sure with your grounding thing, you want to do it with a rod and a cord. You don't want something that's going to plug into an outlet, because you'll have dirty electricity and whatnot. You don't want that. It's non-native EMF electropollution. You don't want that in there. But yeah, I sleep with a grounding pillowcase that's connected to a grounding rod. I just put the wire through the window, connect it to the grounding rod, and then you're good to go for sleep.
And if you live on the top floor like I do,
if you're on the top floor, you're going to need a big grounding cord.
Yeah.
But they make them. So.
Yeah. Not sure my neighbours will be too happy, but so I guess in summary, so we're talking, getting the right kind of light into the body, minimizing the wrong kind of light, the blue lights, etc. Eating seasonally, getting good levels of DHA and other fats. Anything else I've missed?
The grounding.
Grounding, yeah.
Yeah, and just mitigation of blue light, mitigation of artificial non-native EMF.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you hit the highlights.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So Jason, what's next for you? What have you got in the pipeline?
Well, I've currently got a pilot group going through my new program. It's called the Circadian Badass program. So it's basically a 14-day introductory program. So I'm hoping to have that completed and out for January and the New Year rush. But that's one thing with the New Year rush. Don't focus on weight. Focus on your health. And once you focus on your health, then weight, be fat. Everything should fall into place.
Yeah, definitely. And where can people find you online?
Best places to follow or find me would just be social media. So Instagram, Facebook, I am sun.yun.jason. And then Twitter, YouTube, I am at Yun Training. And I also have a 17-step guidebook called my Mitochondriac Guide. So that's improvementwarriorfitness.com/mitochondriac. So it's just a mitochondria with the C at the end.
Gotcha. Excellent. Jason, thank you so much for your time. It's been definitely a really interesting conversation. And it's good to know that I'm doing a lot of the right things. I mean, I don't have my blue blockers on right now, which I probably should do. But other than that, I think you'd probably give me, I don't know, at least a 9 out of 10, I think. Yeah. Based on what we've discussed today. So yeah, thanks very much for sharing your wisdom today.
I appreciate it.
Pleasure. So that's all from Jason and me for this week. But don't forget to join me same time, same place next week on the Radical Health Rebel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to give the show a rating and a review, and I'll see you next time.